Hello, and welcome to another episode of Godless Bitches 2.0. I am Clare Wuellner, and with me today is Jen Peeples,
hey,
who is she's one of the other hosts on the Atheist Experience, and Mandisa Thomas, who is the founder and president of Black Nonbelievers. This is...
Hello.
Hey, Mandisa. This is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization dedicated to the separation of government and religion and the promotion of positive atheist culture. Our special guest, about a month ago, Jen and Tracy and I did a show about how to start up your own organization. If you look for it in your own area, and there isn't any, oftentimes there are groups, you just don't know about it. But if you don't, how to start one. And Mandisa is one of those folks who had groups in the area, but they didn't meet the need that she felt was out there. And since she has started Black Nonbelievers, there are now 13 different branches in the United States, and it has become an amazing force. And it's because Mandisa is an amazing force. It's true. So what I want to talk about today is what you did, why you did it, what it means. Just go.
Oh, awesome!
Right
Thank
on.
you, Claire and Jen.
Yeah.
It is very good to see you both once again.
Yeah.
Even though it's now virtually, as opposed to last week when we were all in the same space together.
Right on.
That was such an amazing weekend. I really do appreciate everyone with ACA. So the reason why Black Nonbelievers was started, a Black atheist meeting that was advertised in the area back in 2010. And so there wasn't any sufficient information on it, but I found other meetups in the area and other groups. And after speaking with other Black atheists online about their experiences with predominantly white atheist groups, I actually had a bit of, I was like, well, I was very optimistic. I said, well, maybe this won't happen here. Maybe this will be a different experience for me. So when I went to the meetup, I actually experienced what the other Black atheists experienced. And the only other Black atheists in attendance, we started talking afterwards. And I said, we're here in Atlanta, which is a hugely predominantly Black city. There has to be more Black atheists out here.
Can I ask what you experienced in those meetings?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
Well, one woman that I was talking to, she said, well, I never met a Black atheist before, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but I was like, oh, okay, there it goes. I'd never met a Black atheist before. But then when the other gentleman who came in, the only other Black person, she actually offered up her seat so that he could sit next to me. And I thought, well, I was talking to you. I wasn't necessarily, why did you feel like first that I needed to sit next to him? And we didn't know each other up until that moment. Mm-hmm. And then just the conversation just continued as to, I had never seen any other Black atheists before. And I made the comment, well, we don't bite, but it was as if it was, almost an entirely different experience. And then as the conversation continued, when we started expressing that there were some challenges to being a Black atheist and the other gentleman was gay, there was a couple there who got so emotional, like, well, what is the difference? Why is there any difference between being Black and white and such? And we're just like, oh gosh,
Because she doesn't see color.
Right, yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So
I'm sorry.
We thought that if we were having these types of experiences within these groups, even though it wasn't entirely bad, we thought we could sense that, well, we can understand why a person of color wouldn't want to come back.
Yeah.
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 Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I've witnessed this sort of behavior in the ACA several years ago. We had a guy who was a longtime member of the group, and he was almost like the welcoming committee for people for a while. And one day we had, I saw this happen twice. Once was with a group of people that included, I believe it was 2 black women, and he immediately went up to them and said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I noticed that you're black and you're women, and we don't have too many of either of those in the group." and I was like, "Okay, dude, you got to stop doing this, because nobody wants to be the token anything in a group." And we would like these people to come back and participate in the group, and they're not going to if you kind of hit them in the face with this.
Yeah. The first question in my mind is, okay, why aren't there? And maybe I don't want to be here either.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then the second time I saw him do it was with a black man who came to the group. And so a lot of people were talking to him and saying, "Oh, hey, how long you been to in Austin, and what do you do, and how'd you become an atheist," and stuff like that. And this guy's going up saying, "Oh, I noticed you're a black atheist, and, you know, what's that like," and all this stuff. And it wasn't the, you know, tell me about, you know, the unique challenges you may have experienced in getting to atheism or anything like that. It was the, you know, again, the sort of tokenism kind of thing.
Yes, and when we're dealing with a community that is already highly religious, and then when you're looking for fellowship and community within the atheist groups, when you encounter stuff like that, it's like, oh gosh, you know, it can be extremely overwhelming, and it's very frustrating, because now you're dealing with a number of issues here, which is a sense of obliviousness and privilege and just outright disrespect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the message that he was kind of communicating was that, well, this is our group, but we'll let you in it, you know. It's like, no, that's not what we want to do. We want people to participate. We want them to be active members. And you don't do that by alienating people right out of the gate.
Exactly.
So how did you start your group?
It was started through Meetup. We created immediately, a Meetup group was created for Black non-believers of Atlanta, because at the time there was also Black Atheists of America. You also had African Americans for Humanism, which was, they were both very prevalent. And we wanted to establish relationships, working relationships with them, but we just thought at the time that it would be exclusive to Atlanta, that we were building this community of Black atheists in Atlanta. We were increasing our visibility. And so it was just going to be local, but we were going to work with other groups locally and nationally. And so we created a Meetup group. We created a website as well that we put the content on. And so we started from there. And the good thing about Meetup is that they announce new Meetup groups whenever they start. And so from there, we just got people to join. We also created our Facebook group, in which we established groups and the description and guidelines early on. And we created a page, or at the time they were called fan pages. And so we were monitoring those very, very carefully. And on my personal Facebook page, I was advertising it. And we had also had the ability to connect with Recovering from Religion. And we started hosting the local support groups with that as well. So it went beyond Black non-believers early on, where we started connecting with other organizations, because that is where it really, really started to take off.
And that's what you're really excellent at, is that networking.
Thank you. It's been important. My background and my skills as, an events person in hospitality, engaging people and engaging them effectively has been very, very crucial. And it's also a part of who I am in general. You know, I do like connecting with people. I do like trying to I also do like to make myself clear as well, and as much as possible, and trying to, establish that from the onset. And that has been an interesting navigation experience over the years, but it's been a good one, and I am fortunate to have met so many great people along the way. Many within the ACA included, especially. So, and then from there, there was interest in starting similar groups or affiliated groups. So by that time, the gentleman who I had spoken with at that meetup had moved on. And so there were other people who had volunteered to step up. And so from there, we increased our to establish those on the ground groups, the people who were meeting up, then doing outreach, and also collaborating with other groups.
Right on. So what are the collaborations that you're working on right now?
So in addition to, in addition to what we do normally at BN, well, I'm also one of the co-hosts on the Parenting Beyond Belief podcast with the ACA.
Right. Yeah. All right.
So that is one collaboration. I still facilitate a Recovering from Religion meetup every second Saturday in the Atlanta area. I will also I just came back from the Freedom from Religion Foundation headquarters, and we talked about working on some stuff there too. Also in my collaboration, I've served on a few boards over the years. Foundation Beyond Belief, you and I served together with Claire.
Yeah.
And I also served on the board for the Secular Coalition for America for 2 years. I currently serve on the board for American Atheists, as well as the Reason Rally Coalition that headed up the last one in 2016. And I also serve as the chair of the nominating committee for the American Humanist Association. And up until recently, yes, I was still working full time.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot that I've been able to do there, and I think that serving on the boards and serving as an advisor to other organizations has been very crucial with the collaborations. I also head up the Atlanta Coalition of Reason here. And so I do connect very closely and engage very closely with the other area organizers. And I'll be working with Sakibu Hutchinson with the Black Skeptics of Los Angeles to put on a Women of Color Beyond Belief conference for 2019.
Oh, cool.
So please, you'll want to look out for that.
Yeah. Do you have a target date for that yet?
Yes, October mid-19 in Chicago, most likely.
Okay.
Right on. I love Chicago. It's a great town.
Yes, we'll be looking out for that, and we will promote that as it gets closer.
Right on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, my allergies. When I first got into the secular movement here in Austin, which was about 20 years ago, I would go to meetings, and it would be the typical all-white old men, pretty much. And there would be me as one white woman, and there might be a couple other women at stuff, but not too many. Right. And in the 20 years that I've been doing this, I've been working hard, just like Jen and you, Mandisa, to open this community up to everybody. And I felt like part of what made it a white man's community, old white men, is that they like to argue a lot. They wanted to have, topics that were controversial, and they would argue. And I'm from academia, so arguing, it's cool, I'll do it. Yeah. But a lot of women, not so much. And if people of color are walking in and they're like, I didn't know there was anybody who was a person of color who was an atheist. Oh my God. I've seen it change over the last 20 years. Is that just me? Is it getting more diverse? I know we got a hell of a long ways to go, but it feels like it's getting better. Am I deluding myself?
No, I think it has gotten better. I think things have improved because the content has started to change.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that makes this important is that as we start engaging and connecting more diverse people, and that includes other white people too, we're looking to we're looking to talk about like, well, once people leave religion behind, or once they leave their other communities behind, what's next? So helping people to overcome those religious beliefs is one thing. And also being able to build community, start working on projects that are important to us, and talking about issues that are important to us that intersect is very important. And it was foolish for the other organizations to ignore that.
Yeah.
Yes, there are challenges to being Black and atheist that cannot be ignored. And also too is being women when we have our families and people who are dealing with religious, family members and friends. How do we help deal with that? That was also relevant to many of us in the community. And so in that setting, and we didn't just wait for that to happen. We had to, create it. We had to make sure it happened. And we had to make sure that we spoke up at these other events to say, hey, this is what is missing. This is what should be done. And if y'all don't want to do it, then we'll be the ones to do it. And you can either come along or you can stay behind. That's the attitude I've had.
Right.
Because we've had many people ask us, well, why does there need to be Black non-believers, or, are you separating yourselves? It's like, no, there are unique issues and concerns, and we weren't waiting on anyone to address them when we had to do it.
Absolutely. And getting the point across to the people who run things pretty much right now still, that for me, when I turn on the Atheist Experience and the host is either Jen or Tracy and the co-host is either Jen or Tracy, it means something to me. It's important. And when Secular Sexuality has a trans woman and it's hosted by a woman, and then a man who is a counselor, which is typically, having that variety, having our what people see reflect the face that's out there in the world is important. And I am stunned at the number of people, prominent people, who disagree with that. What do you say to that?
It is absolutely astounding, the number of people who don't seem to get that. If all we're purporting or all we're showing is white men as the representatives of the atheist movement, you might have some people of color who will gravitate towards that, which is fine, because even the Black atheist community is diverse within itself. We don't all share the same ideals. There are a lot of people who can appreciate the works of Richard Dawkins, Dan Barker, and even Matt Dillahunty, one of the co-hosts of the Atheist Experience, because there's a lot that they have to offer. But it does see women who are primary voices, Black women who are primary voices, even some Black men. So yes, it does make a huge difference. And it also goes to show that the secular community is open, to these, to diversity and inclusivity, and is actually putting its money where its mouth is, so to speak. And if there isn't an effort to do that, then that would have slowed down progress for us tremendously. So there needed to be those efforts to put us more on the forefront, and for us, definitely us to speak up and make sure that people are listening.
Yeah.
And also supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say that one of the things that I find is sort of almost magnetic about Black non-believers is the number of strong women leaders that you have in the group. I mean, yourself included, but some of your chapter leaders as well. And I think that's just phenomenal that you guys are actually, like you said, putting your money where your mouth is. You're highlighting, women's leadership in your organization in a way that I think a lot of national organizations have utterly failed to do.
Absolutely.
Yes, and yes, of course, we have Bridget Crutchfield
yes.
from out of Detroit. And, also some of our organizers, they may think I'm a little hard on them at times, but the one thing I've always tried to stress is that it is important for us to keep speaking up and keep going, because at times it gets hard. It really, really gets difficult, especially when you're still dealing with a lot of these toxic attitudes that other people tend to have. There's a lot of baggage that people take with them once they leave religion, and we're still combating that. And so as an organization, we've also sought to change that mindset that you may have left God behind, but you have brought a whole bunch of other shit with you that you need to check.
Right.
And I mean, it has been, and sometimes it makes me seem like I'm this sort of monster, and it's like, no, it doesn't mean that I don't care. We're very caring people. We've done before, why it's not working now, and how we need to change it and progress from it for the future. So it has been a very, very interesting journey from that point, because I haven't had to deal with these crazy attitudes just from white people. I've also had to deal with it from the Black atheist community, because there were and are still a lot of them who are very anti-LGBT. They are vibration, and was not going to let that permeate or overrun. And there were times where that threatened to happen, but yes, we had to remain strong and remain vigilant about it.
Right, and there's so many people who say, and whenever I'm watching the Atheist Experience on live or Talk Heathen or whatever, and off in the side, the caller will be talking about abortion or race or whatever, and they'll be, this is supposed to be an atheism show. Why are we talking about this?
Right.
Those things are atheist issues.
Right.
My gosh, you see it, like you said, they bring this from their religion. And we need to weed it out. We need to talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, and one thing I've always, the one thing I've always said is that in people bringing that that baggage with them, my being an atheist allows me to see that and understand and know that being anti-LGBT is wrong.
Yeah.
That being pro-separation and against reproductive rights, all of that is wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm able to take that from an evidence and information base and explain why.
Right. Bingo.
Yep.
Bingo. And I agree 100%. What time is it? Let's see where we are on time.
Yeah, we are.
It is about time. So any last things you want to say, Mandisa, before you go? Before we end this?
So yes, awesome. So yes, I had the opportunity to speak before the ACA Back Cruise last weekend, which was great. And I did my talk of Fear of a Black Atheist, which discussed why the Black community is so religious, what Black non-believers is doing about that, what we are doing to help support, and what the community at large can do to help support us, and also what we can do, like if you consider yourself an ally, what you should and should not do.
Talk about that.
And I think that all of these things are important, yes, because someone may think, they may honestly think they're an ally, but when it comes to these, when it comes to certain behaviors, and it's often the the microaggressions, the things you don't think you're doing that are more harmful, even if you're not saying overtly racist things, even though what you described, Claire and Jen, early on about the gentleman who kept speaking to the Black folks like, oh, what? Yeah, those are things that you just should not do.
Yeah, it's like they know they're Black. They know they're
pretty clear on that.
Atheist group. It's like
an ally and a partner and a supporter. Please listen to the people that are coming from those communities and adjust, because there's a lot that when the people of color are telling you what their issues are, what the women are telling you, what the concerns and issues are, when the young people are telling you what their concerns and issues are, we need to be listening and adjusting as that process goes. And accountability is everything, because we're coming from communities that often allowed people to shirk those responsibilities, that it's always, you know, that power is going to come from, you know, elsewhere, or that, you know, oh, well, I can just put it off. No, no, we have a responsibility, you know, to make sure that we're reevaluating constantly and continuing to improve. And that's what organizations like Black Nonbelievers does, as well as the other organizations that are forming. There was something that needed to be added to not just the discussions, but also the actions within the community.
Yeah.
And that's where we're very, you know, very actions and solutions based. And even if it is on a social level, just engaging people where they are. All of these things are important for us to review, especially if we want to move forward.
Right on. Thank you. Anything else you want to add, Jen?
No, I just want to thank Mandisa for being so awesome. I loved your talk last week, and hope you come back again and again for the Bat Cruise.
Right on. Yep.
Yes, that will be in my plans for the near future. And thank you all so very much for having me.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you for taking time out of your, I know, very busy schedule to come talk to us about this stuff.
Yes.
It's super important, and I really, really appreciate your take on these things. So, let's see. Thank you, Jen, for another awesome show. It's so good to do these, and I really appreciate the energy that you bring. It's just
thank you.
Stuff. Really, really.
You too.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Mandisa, one more time. Thank you to the crew, the folks on the other side of the wall right over there that actually make all this stuff work. It's a hard job. They take equipment that doesn't want to talk to each other and make it talk to each other. That is a very complicated thing that I'm going to let them do. I just come here and talk. So I want to leave you with one final thought, and that is we don't need a savior. We have each other. It's all we've ever had, and it's all we'll ever need. Bye.
Bye.